This is a Hornby R2631X Royal Scot class, the Green Howards. It was sent to me by Bob, who told me the motor spins, but the locomotive doesn't move. Yeah, I can't even get my screwdriver into that slot. It's not coming out because it's kind of jammed in. I'm actually seriously thinking of admitting defeat with this. So this here is supposed to be screwed to the chassis down in there. I think there's maybe a bit of Mazak Rot. And there you go, you can see it's actually broken, I think. So it is a bit of Mazak Rot, I'm afraid. There you go. You can see where that's broken. Yeah, I need to find a way to fix that motor. What a shame. The dreaded Mazak Rot. Okay, so this is part 2 of me trying to get this Hornby Royal Scot running again. That's got a bit of a bad case of Mazak Rot. Because of the Mazak Rot, I'd pretty much written this off because replacement parts are no longer available, and I couldn't think of any other way of securing the motor. I need this part here to hold the motor in place, and it's crumbling away, it's falling apart. So as I say, I kind of just thought, well, there's not much I can do with this. But I did spot someone on eBay selling what they were advertising as a DCC socket for a Hornby Royal Scot, but it also came with the mount, the part that's falling apart on this model. So I thought, right, okay, we'll get that, because I couldn't see any other replacement. That's the replacement part I want. Ideally, I'd want an entire replacement chassis, but no, just not possible just now, I don't think. But I thought, well, at least having that would secure the motor again, I think, and the double gear. These parts there hold the double gear in place, and this part here holds the motor in place. So I thought, well, if I can fit that, we'll maybe get this running again. Because of the Mazak Rot, this model is going to have, pretty much a reduced lifespan, shall we say. It's all going to fall apart from the inside. But I thought, well, forget this. Maybe we can get it running again. This part also has Mazak Rot. I can see that. It's show you on the endoscope. So you can see the threaded stub there that holds the socket in place. It's crumbled away, and there's a lot of cracking that you can maybe just see there. So yeah, they're probably all going to suffer from Mazak Rot, which is why I think Hornby did offer replacement chassis for these at one point. But anyway, we'll just have to make do with this. If I come to screw it on, it might all fall apart. Who knows? But we'll see. But it'd be nice to get this running again. I've just started desoldering this. I didn't have my camera switched on. Stupid idiot. So I've desoldered a couple of the wires. I'm just going to desolder a couple more, and then we'll see if we can fit this. There we go. So that now comes out. So this stub here would have been, a bit higher and fits into that hole. But it's broken off. You can see in the old one there, it's broken off and jammed in the hole. So I think if we put this in place, we might be able to drill a hole in that. Now, I'm a wee bit nervous about doing that, but I don't see any alternative. I've got to make this fit, and it'll have to fit quite securely. Put the wires through, like so. That post for the DCC socket is just crumbling apart. This one seems okay, so one will have to do. So that seems if it'll hold the motor in place, if we can just get that screwed in. Okay, we need to drill down that hole. I think I'm going to have to go online and buy some screws, I think. That's annoying. I should have realised that was going to have to be a very long screw, because, you know, this stub would have gone up inside this, and you just put the screw in, it screws into the stub. But with the stub gone, I've drilled a hole, but it means the screw has to be much longer. So I need a screw with a diameter of about 1.8 millimeters and a length of 11 millimeters. Let's go shopping again. So a few days later, I got a little pack of screws, which it turns out aren't quite long enough. I mean, I did measure thinking, yeah, that'll kind of do it, but no, they would need to be a bit longer. You know, by the time they go through this part and into the chassis, it was only, you know, a tiny wee bit of the thread was going in, and I thought that's just going to strip pretty quickly, because, you know, this part has to be screwed in very tightly to hold the motor in place. So yeah, I don't think these are long enough, and I couldn't get ones that were longer with the same diameter. So I had another think, and I decided to use one of these screws. This is, hang on a minute. So I've got a few of these screws. I'm not quite sure what they're from. I think they're maybe from an XO4 or an XO3 motor. You know, the screw that goes through the magnet. I'm not entirely sure. But I've got a few of them. It was too long, so I decided to cut it down. So I've cut that one down to the right length. And a bit of a thicker screw, so I've had to re-drill the hole. But actually, drilling it a little bit wider is actually quite good. It makes it a more substantial hole. It will take a thread a bit better. So, and I've had to drill through this part as well to get the screw to go through. So there's the re-drilled hole to take this screw. So I'm hoping that'll screw this part in nice and tight. I've also put some pieces of plastic between the rear motor mounts and the motor, just to tighten it up and make sure that motor doesn't move about. So let's screw this down and see if it's going to hold this motor in place. This will have to be quite tight. There we go, nice and tight. Doesn't move. Gears engaged. Looks good so far. Let's give it a wee go on the test track. I've fitted a blanking plate just now because this was DCC fitted. But I've put a blanking plate in just now, and we'll see if this works. I think the thing that scares me most about this model is trying to refit the body. But we'll come to that. Right, let's see if this runs. Yes, it does. In both directions. Excellent. Well, so far so good. That's screwed on, it's holding the motor in place, gears are engaging. I'm just going to open this up again and get some lubrication in there. It's this isn't something I want to take off and put back on too often, so this is going to be the last time. Unscrew that, and that comes off, and we'll get some oil and grease into the gears. Silicone grease in there, and a wee drop of gear oil. Right. Fit this again for the last time. That does fit nice and tight. I'm glad I went for the bigger screw because it really needs it. Right, okay. We'll just work that lubrication in. So I'm going to fit the DCC decoder, and I'll need to make sure it's running under DC, because one thing I'm not doing with this is running it with a blanking plate fully assembled, and then taking the body off and fitting the decoder. Right, in you get. Now, I've only got one screw hole to fit this socket to. And it goes to get some tape on there. Oh, of course, there's these silly screws with the really narrow slots. Try and refit this, which was an absolute devil to get off. And there's a few things have broken off. There's a pipe there and a couple of other wee bits and bobs, but they're not broken. It's just the glue's given away, so there's no actual damage. But yeah, getting this back together could be fun, and I'm gonna have to manage these wires. Oh dear, not looking forward to this. And we'll see if we can persuade this to go in, because it was an absolute devil to get out. But you never know, it might go in a bit easier than it came out. So a big part of the problem is that the Mazak Rot has caused the chassis to swell a little bit, and this part here as well. But it came out, it should go back in, but yeah, this isn't going to be easy. Got wires and pipes to negotiate here. Yeah, I can see that the swollen chassis is a problem. Go on, get in. Click. It's in, and it's not coming out again. I can only apologise to Bob for any damage being done here, but there's not much else I can do. Right, it's in. That's moving. I'm just going to back that screw off a wee bit, actually. Right. Okay. I think the worst is over. Put this screw in, which was a real devil to get off. Do you ever have this where you test fit something and it's fine, and then as soon as you put the glue on, you can't get it fitted? A wee problem at the end. There's a problem with the front bogie. Let's take it off again. This front wheel isn't spinning, it's just going to drag on the track. It's very stiff. That one's fine. Pull it off, pull that out, see what's going on. Just going to remove this coupling, so I'm just wondering if the back of the coupling is hitting the axle. Yeah, it is. Well done, Hornby. The back of the coupling behind the NEM pocket here is hitting the axle. So if I remove the coupling, come on, out you come. We'll just remove it and leave it removed. The axle runs free. Come on, get out. There you go. See, spins free now. Right, I think that'll be okay. So we'll leave the coupling off. Right, I think we're done. This has been a job and a half, it really has. I've had this model for a couple of weeks, in fact, probably a bit longer than that. Yeah, it's up there with one of the trickiest repairs I've done. Let's see, make sure it runs with the tender. Right, final test. Yeah, that's better. Right, got there in the end. Let's pull it out the shed. You maybe noticed there that the cab was a bit squint. It just needed clicked into place, which I've done now. But yeah, that was a tricky one. The dreaded Mazak Rot causing all sorts of issues. And to be honest, if I hadn't found that spare part online, I would have given up on this. It may be possible to get a 3D printed part that might work, but I'd worry about that breaking, as it has to be a pretty tight fit to do its job in keeping the motor and gears in place. And, my experience of 3D printed parts is that they tend to be quite brittle. I did contact Hornby to see if they had spare chassis parts left for this model, but they said no, it was too old for them to have parts for. Isn't it annoying that you can't get parts for the older models, which are the very ones you tend to need parts for? I understand they're going to stock some parts for newer models because they're currently being or were very recently manufactured, and I totally understand that they can't stock parts for everything forever, but I do think Hornby should be offering something to those who bought one of these new and it's now falling to bits. Even a discount on a new model or something would be much better than the shoulder shrug you get just now. It's a real shame this model has this issue, as it's a nice looking model, and I would definitely buy one, if it didn't have this rot problem. But because of that, I wouldn't touch one of these for sale with a barge pole unless I knew it had been fitted with replacement die-cast parts. This will run for a wee while, but it does sadly have a terminal condition, and without replacement die-cast parts, it will end up being a static model at some point. But anyway, it's running just now. I shall get it packed up and sent back to Bob. Just before I go, there's a wee postscript to this one. I did look for 3D printed parts online but couldn't find any. However, after the part 1 video, a few people emailed me saying that 3D parts were available for the part I managed to get on eBay and telling me who to contact to get them. So thank you very much to everyone who emailed me about that. It'll be very helpful in the future. Now, a chap called Jeff of Hammond Models, who is a seller on eBay, very kindly offered to send me some 3D printed spares of the part in question, along with some 9F motor mounts as well. So thank you very much to Jeff for these. I'm sure they'll come in handy at some point. I always really appreciate any spares that are sent to me. All spares are very precious. So thanks again to Jeff for his generosity. Unfortunately, it was too late for this model. There was no way I was going to open it up again while it was running okay, but I will inform Bob that if the part I got on eBay fails, I'd be happy to try fitting one of these for him. They don't have the posts or the recess for the DCC socket, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Okay, so thanks again to Jeff and to everyone else who contacted me about this, and I shall catch you later.